Hello. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to another day to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. As we mentioned yesterday, today being that it is Rosh Chodesh, it is the first of the day of the month of Av. Today also being a very special day on the calendar, not only that it's Rosh Chodesh, but it is also the yahrzeit of Aaron HaKohen, Aaron, the high priest, Moses' brother. So we'll talk a little bit today about Aaron and his role together with Moshe. Throughout the Torah, as the Jewish people came out of Egypt and for the 40 years that the Jewish people traveled throughout the desert, most of the time that we hear Moshe's name being mentioned. Moshe as the leader, Moshe is the one to talk to the Jewish people and give them everything they need. And Moshe is the one that gets the complaints from the Jewish people, who petitions God. He goes up on the Mount Sinai to get the Ten Commandments. We know Moses is the leader of the Jewish people, and very infrequently do we hear about Aaron's name mentioned at all. Where are the few times where we hear Aaron's name? So Aaron is, of course, the one who, when Moshe refused to go to Pharaoh and told God, find somebody else to do the job, he says Aaron will be your spokesman, and Aaron was the one to go with Moshe and to do the actual plagues in front of Pharaoh. Aaron is the high priest who is then chosen by God to be the high priest and to the Holy of Holies. Aaron is the one who also had to deal with the Jewish people while Moses was at Mount Sinai with the sin of the golden calf. When Korach complained and made the coup against Moshe, his complaint was not only that Moshe was the leader, but also the fact of nepotism of putting Aaron as the high priest. And throughout the journey of the Jewish people, there were times where Aaron came to face, but most of the time he was behind the scenes. There's a verse in Psalm that says, Moses is truth, righteousness is Moses, but peace is Aaron. What does that mean? What does it refer to? Why is sometimes Moses called truth or righteousness, and why is Aaron called peace? Because we see over here and throughout the entire travels of the Jewish people and the partnership that Moses and Aaron had, Moses was symbolic of one angle of feeding the Jewish people and sustaining them spiritually, while Aaron had another angle. And that we see in the verse and in the only Torah reading that Moses' name is not mentioned, which is in the Torah reading of Tetzaveh. God comes along to Moses and says, you shall command the Jewish people that they should bring olive oil to illuminate the candles in the menorah, and it should be an everlasting candle from evening to morning. Why were they to bring the oil to Moses? Moses wasn't the one that was going to light the candle menorah. It was Aaron. And Hasidic interpretation explains to us over here the roles of Moses and Aaron. And by understanding the roles of Moses and Aaron, we can see why Moses was, so to speak, out front, and Aaron was the one behind, and they both carry very important roles as well as important lessons that we can apply in our day-to-day life. You know, in order to have a candle, you need to have the oil, and then you need to have the light that keeps the candle going, the oxygen and the around the area to make sure that the candle's not put out. Moses was the oil. Moses was the fuel. Hasidism and Kabbalah explains that Moses, because he taught the Torah, he was on an intellectual level together relating with every Jew. So Moses was intellect, but intellect at its source, intellect as it is in its essence. Imagine you have an idea before the idea is developed. It is very intimate within the individual because it's only your idea. You haven't yet developed it to explain it to somebody else. The moment you articulate the idea, you have now looked and considered who you're articulating it to be able to tell them that idea. Moses was divine intellect. Moses was the one that got the Torah from Almighty God, and therefore he was absolute truth. And therefore in Psalms, when it mentions Moses' name, it says truth, this is Moses. Because the absolute idea, the intellect, before it's broken down and given to any person and getting to any rationale, that's absolute truth. That's the way it's Moses. Righteousness is Moses too. Because as Moses being a true leader of the Jewish people, He was the fuel injecting, giving the Jewish people that ability to be able to connect to God on an intellectual level. And for that reason, throughout the journey of the Jewish people in the 40 years in the desert, what did you see? You saw Moses' face. He was the face of the Jewish people. Because he was truth. He had to lead them. He was the fuel, giving them the ability to connect divinely with God. That's Moses. But then when it comes to peace, that's Aaron. Because as it says in Ethics of Our Fathers, Aaron was a person who loved peace, pursued peace, and brought every single person close to Torah. Aaron was a person who, if he saw two people not getting along, he went to one person and says, the other guy really wants to get along with you. And then he went to the other person and, that person wants to get along with you. He didn't always say, so to speak, the complete truth, because he had to tell those people, in essence, they do want to get along. But at the moment, they were at odds. But he was there to make peace between husband and wife, between parent and child, between man and his fellow. That's what Aaron was. Aaron was taking the wisdom of Moses and articulating it and bringing it and cultivating it within every single individual. Aaron was taking the lamp of the menorah, that the oil was brought to Moses, but then Aaron had to make that menorah last. He had to make sure that it continues to go from morning to evening, from evening to morning, whatever it needed to be. In life, there are many different ways about going things. A person can say, I have to be truthful. I'll tell you the dead honest truth about you. You are a blank and blank and blank, even though it may be true. But does it have to be said? Are you a Moses? Unless you're giving over divine message, then not always do you have to tell the person everything you think about them. Or maybe you shouldn't be thinking that about them. Not always. It says, even in the Talmud tells us there's 3 times a person's allowed to lie. And one of them is to bring peace. That means the Torah is telling us over here, it's not that you're allowed to lie. It's about how are you going to achieve the best result in making these people understand and appreciate the ultimate truth. Moses' truth can be undiluted because it was a divine message from God, can never be diluted. That's the way the truth is. But Aaron had to make it stick because he was about peace. He was about cultivation. And you know what? Yes, you don't always get the credit for making the peace. You're not always seen on the front lines. You're not always the one that's plastered in the front pages getting the great badge of honor because you made peace. Because you were really the one underneath getting them to get along and making those people to making sure they talk to each other. When there's the big op-ed, the big photo ops of the 2 people shaking hands, you don't see the people who got those 2 people to shake hands together standing there. Moses, he was the image of the Jewish people because he was the one giving them the divine message, an undiluted truth. Didn't make a difference if you got it or you didn't. That's why Moses says that the Jewish people were standing from day to night and they would come to him to be able to resolve their disputes. Because when a person stood in front of Moses, automatically the dispute was resolved. The aura, the holiness, the greatness of Moses made those disputes all of a sudden go to the wayside. But did the people become friends? Did they embrace each other? Did they cultivate a relationship because of it? Not necessarily. But when they came to Aaron, Aaron was a person of peace who pursued peace, who loved peace. He didn't only make the arguments dissipate, but he made them become friends. Why? Because Aaron looked at every single person, not for their divine and intellectual capability, but for the divine creation. As it says in Ethics of Our Fathers, he brought the creations closer to Torah. The mere fact that a person had the capability that he was a creation of God, Aaron already brought them close to Torah. Aaron already saw their divine quality. Not that Moses didn't, but Moses was absolute truth. So if you had a stain on your face, it would come to show. Aaron was able to ignore it because he saw you were a creation. He was in method of peace. When Aaron passed away, on the first day of Av, God gives him a special gift. He passes away, as it's called in the Torah, and the Talmud calls it a misas neshikin, a passing which was a kissing death. God told Moses to Aaron up on the mountain. He gave over his clothing to his son Elazar, who was going to be his successor. He lied down on the bed, and his soul went up on high. God kissed his soul goodbye. At that moment, Moses turned to God and said, "This is the way I want to go." He craved, he was jealous of Aaron's behavior. Moses also wanted to have that level of pursuing and seeing every person just for who he is. A concept that God showed in the kissing. What does it mean, the kissing? Death? There was nothing in between. Just the very fact who you are, what you are, the way you are, went up on high. The greatest and intense and most intimate relationship that one can have. At times, we need to sacrifice the truth, so to speak, for the sake of peace. Even though it may be hurting you. Even though you may want to tell the person what you really think of them. Maybe change the way you think of them. Realize that you can get along with that person regardless of what may be their natural behaviors or their truthful behaviors. Look at a person and see, how would Aaron look at this person? How would Aaron, our forefather, the high priest who loved every single person, what would he say? What would he do? And how would he bring this person closer to Torah and bring them into their life? Today, on the 1st of Av, as we mentioned yesterday, where we mourn the destruction of the temple that was destroyed because of Basil's hatred, we can evermore learn from the students of Aaron and from the practices of Aaron to cultivate the love and the feeling and the relationship with one another. When two people are in dispute, to try to get them along instead of gossiping and slandering and be able to create a greater hoo-ha about this argument. Find a way how you can bring these two people together. If we have disagreements with people because those people irk me or bother me, for whatever reason it may be, how can I settle it? How can I make it better? If it means that I need to ignore an ugly truth about that person, so may it be. Because peace, righteousness, and love, baseless love, even though there's no reason why you should love them or be kind to them, is what brings about the ultimate redemption, is what will bring about the third Beis HaMikdash, the eternal temple, that we will all be able to enjoy together in truth and see the truth of every single person. As the Torah tells us, that even if a person misbehaves or a person does something wrong, it is not because they really want to do that thing wrong. Unfortunately, it's the wayward son within them. It's the evil inclination that convinces them to do it wrong. We need to be there to be able to persuade them and do the right thing and get them away from the evil inclination's influences and teach them that they can do better. Their soul is greater and the soul is holier, that they can have that love, they can have that relationship with God, with their spouse, with their sibling, with their parent, whatever it may be. Be from the students of Aaron, excel in baseless love, and we will all merit the building of the Beis HaMikdash, the holy temple. May it be now. Amen. Thank you for listening to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Tomorrow we'll be discussing chapter 2 of Ethics of Our Fathers. God bless you and have a great day.